Okay guys, so we're releasing a new series today called Photography in the Art of Life, or PAL for short, right here. So what's this all about? Well, life and photography go together. I've been a photographer since I was 12, and during that time I've done a lot of living. I've always found that photography gave me an entrance to life and to capture moments, whether it's sports, music, art, whatever. You're using photography as a means to learn about life and capture those moments. So this show is going to cover some important things. It's going to help you become a better photographer by taking you through the 4 stages of photography. And let me talk about what these stages are. So the first stage is what we call visualization. And that's you learning to visualize an image. Composition, getting the image first in your own mind, just like Ansel Adams taught us. Visualizing it, putting that thought there, what are you trying to get? And then learning the techniques of composition that suit you, okay? Rather than trying to memorize a bunch of rules, I want to help you find your sweet spot in composition and things that work for you. The other thing is sometimes you need a shoot plan. Like if you're going out on an assignment, you need to know that you're going to come back with certain shots. Well, even if you're going out and shooting your own kids at a water polo game or a polo match or whatever, you want to come back with certain shots, and that's your shot plan. One huge way to learn photography is to look at others' work. And I don't mean to steal it or to rip it off, but to get an idea of how they did it. And I want you to think in terms of not just photography here, but think in terms of the artistic masters. Look at Rembrandt lighting, for instance. Study how did he capture those people? Where was the light coming from? How did it reflect in the room, and how did it hit their face? Because you can use those techniques. In fact, we're going to show you how to do that in the lighting section. And then just continual study of photography. And study, again, of life. So finding those layers and those moments that really work for you and keeping notes of those things is really important. In fact, one of the things I want you to do is go out and get one of these notebooks. You can get them at a dime store or a drugstore for like $1.25. I've got dozens of these things. Keep a journal, and I'll show you in a minute what I want you to keep in here. But that's all coming under the heading of visualization. It's you as a photographer, before you even pick up a camera, thinking about how you're going to get the shot, what kind of shots you want to get, and how you want it to look at the end. The next stage, so you notice here, these flow to each other. So the next one is your equipment. Now, I'm not a super geek about equipment. Look, I've had some pretty cool cameras. I don't shoot with this one much anymore, but this is a Rolleiflex that I carried around with me for years. Produces really beautiful images. This is a Polaroid, and it also produces some cool images. And this is a Leica M2 that I used for many, many years, mainly because my mentor, Henry Cartier-Bresson, used one, so therefore I had to as well, along with Annie Leibovitz when we were at the San Francisco Art Institute. But the deal with equipment is you got to know how to use it. Now, there's already a lot of stuff out there. We're not going to reinvent the wheel and go through a lot of new tutorials about equipment unless there's stuff that you really do need to know, and we're going to cover that. But equipment includes, obviously, your camera, your lenses. Why shoot with a certain lens? What are advantages to shooting with one lens as opposed to, a whole arsenal or even zoom lenses? How to clean your lenses. Before we started here, we actually had a little spot on we didn't know where it was coming from. Was it coming from the lens? Where was it? We actually blew some air into the sensor and got rid of it. So obviously, that's important to know how to care for your stuff, your equipment. Along with that, by the way, remember, we're the guys that brought you Zither. And it would really help you, if you guys would download Zither and start using it, because it'll become a tool that keeps track of your gear. And you can download it right here. You also need to know about your cards, how to care for them, what kind of cards to use. We use SanDisk. Ever since they sponsored us in the early days, I became a fan of SanDisk. and they're actually going to give away some prizes for us, which you'll hear about in a minute. Also lighting. We're using 3 soft boxes here. It's a really versatile setup because you can move these things anywhere. We've got a big one here, 2 little ones. Strobes. We're not going to go into a lot of detail because you've already got people like David Hobby and Joe McNally who are the masters of that. But we want to show you a few tips and tricks along that way. And your tripod, obviously, it's important to have a tripod and know how to use it. There's times where you really do want to use a tripod. It helps you as a photographer get that shot. Like if you're doing landscape work, I really recommend a tripod because it causes you to slow down and actually get that moment, but really think about it before you press the shutter. So the next phase, after you've got your equipment, your visualization is processing your work, where we're actually teaching you some Photoshop and Lightroom stuff and tutorials as we go. Basically how to get your vision, whatever that photograph was in your head, to look like that. That's all in our processing section. And then the final section is sharing. So when you put those together, they actually work together interactively. So the better you visualize, the better you can use your equipment, the better you process, and the more you share your stuff, it gives you feedback, and that comes back to your visualization again. Okay, let's take a look at this notebook. By the way, let me just interject this point right now. We want your help in creating this show, in this series, and I want your feedback. After we do each video, give us your questions, your thoughts, your own tips, anything we might have skipped over or left out. And what we'll do is in the next segment, we'll pick up some of those questions and talk about them. So we'll make sure we're not leaving anything out. At the end of all this, we're actually going to transcribe it and edit it into a book, and you guys can help us write that book with visuals and examples and links and that sort of thing. I don't know, maybe it's the first book where we've actually had the audience participate in writing the book, so this could be really cool. Okay, so the next stage is sharing your work. Because if it just sits on your hard drive or in your camera or in your iPhone or whatever, there's really a lack of satisfaction. You want to share this stuff. And that's sharing stuff online. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Creating books. We're really big believers. If you go on a trip, for instance, finish that trip with a book. My wife has become a pro at this, and maybe I'll even get her on the show to tell you how to do that. But that way you've got a documentation of that trip or that experience or whatever it is in one place. I also love it when I make a print that finalizes my whole concept. When Ansel Adams talked about visualization, he was talking about from the moment that you get the idea all the way through to the point where it's on your wall as a print, which includes really correct framing also. Framing your print makes all the difference in the world. And then if you get into selling or you're already into selling your work, okay, we'll talk about some of the stuff behind that, some of the marketing and sales stuff that you can learn from, and how to get your work into shows. It's really pretty thrilling when you get your photographs being shown to others and you hear their feedback in real time. So look, the only way to learn is to get out there and do stuff. So I'm going to give you exercises and things that you need to do along the way so that you're actually doing what we're talking about. Now that gets us to our first exercise, this little book here. So what's this all about? You're going to keep track of, first of all, the first thing I want you to do at the top of the page here is write down your goals as a photographer. Where do you want to go? Now that's going to change as you go through this. So leave a lot of white space here so you can fill it in. Now here's my goal for this series and for you. My goal is I want to help you advance to be a great photographer in your own estimation. Now, the definition of great from the Oxford American Dictionary is it's of an extent, amount, or intensity that is considerably above the normal or average. So we want you to get above the normal or average, even in your own space, like what you consider who you are as a photographer. We want you to excel and move to that next level. And hey, that's a continuous process. That's why we call it advancing your photography. We're going to help you through that. We're going to help you become a better photographer by talking about each one of those 4 stages of photography. Now, the other thing I want you to do here is I want you to keep notes of things. So I recommend, for instance, go to museums whenever you can. Go look at the masters of any art form and take notes. Draw little sketches of how did they light that? How did it work for them? What are the elements in it? And take notes of those things so when you go out, next time you pick up a camera, you can test those things out. Keep your thoughts in there. Also note down things that didn't work for you and areas you need to get data on, get answers for. Like you notice you're having a problem with something, write it down and make sure you let us know so we can help you do that. Okay, so this is your notebook, first assignment. One other thing which would be cool as you're making your journal, if you get a really cool drawing or some kind of note or some epiphany or something like that and you want to share that, just take a picture of it and send that in too. I'd love to see what you guys are coming up with, okay? I think you'll find this little notebook, low tech. This is not a, expensive iPad or anything like that. It's $1.50. You'll get hooked on these things. You'll want to keep your notes in there. You'll want to keep track of your thoughts. Okay, so you want to know how you can help us help you bring more content to you. Here's some ways. So first of all, get the word out to your friends, share on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And also share these videos and like them because that's important. That's an important way for us to get the message out. Make sure you're giving us your feedback, as I already discussed. And since we're self-funding this show, you can help us every time you order something at Amazon or B&H. Use the link that you'll find here and actually in the video description. If you do that, we'll get credit for your order and that helps us fund the show, okay? And don't forget to use Zither because that helps us get traction there as well. Okay guys, summary. We're gonna learn over the summer and we're gonna become better photographers and great in our own estimation by learning the 4 stages of photography, by becoming really passionate and learning from our own experience and sharing with others, okay? So get out there, capture your own images of life, and remember to live life along the way. Talk to you soon.